So very excited to have you here, sir.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I didn't want to take up too much space.
The last question before our panel comes up is just a general question. What barriers do people avoid talking about when it comes to tech or career building or so I'll give y'all 4 minutes to talk about this and then we can start with our
Yeah. So I can like something to hit me. That's why I'm like I should have it because I realized, like I said, I didn't want to take up any space that was somebody else, you know, like someone centered in fact, you know. Youth tech, build tech, in tech. Anybody? You're right. Nope. Right. Good. I appreciate this nonetheless.
Welcome.
This is my partner in tech. I got issues with Michael.
You got technical love and love it.
I started at 6.
Y'all. So once again, I know we had quite a few new people walk in. We're the Universal Tech Movement, formerly known as the Austin Urban Technology Movement, and our mission is to help people get into the tech industry, be it digital equity, workforce development, and doing events like this. Tonight's event, we're doing a fireside chat with our president and CEO, Michael Ward Jr., as well as the executive director, Ms. Paulina of the new Philanthropists. Okay. And so go ahead and get that started. Y'all want to come on up? Yeah. Everybody can hear me? I'm not a doctor. So great to share space with y'all. I hope you're enjoying the food.
Oh yes, food is delicious. Food is delicious.
We're gonna go to Enzo Alice time. Yeah, well, Michael, I think we've done it in our circles for a long time now, right? Share space. So it's been really nice to really kind of, have a deep conversation with you about nonprofit leadership, in tech space, et cetera. So everybody else calling that Artieda, especially I'm executive director of the Philantropists. I'll go into that a little bit about what that means and what our nonprofit does, but please introduce yourself as social entrepreneur. I'm sure you want to know more about it.
For sure. Well, Paulina, it's a pleasure for us to connect. I admire the way that y'all do as well. As philanthropists, I always say we all have a role to play, and if we play our role, we can do great things. So thank you for the work that you do. I appreciate the kind words. Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Ward Jr. I'm the president and CEO of Austin Urban Movement that just rebranded to Universal Tech. It's been a long journey. I'm very excited to be here. This is actually my first speaking engagement since the rebrand. So I'm very excited to think about these questions, but in a different mindset based on like where we are now and where I'm hoping that we go as an organization, but also things that I'm doing personally, right? Given the overall climate. So it's a pleasure to be here. I've been here in Austin for 9 years now, but originally from Miami, but came down by way of Boston. So I came from Boston to Austin. I've been here for 10 years now. So pleasure.
Yeah, so congratulations. 5 years ago now, right?
So we've been formalized since 2019, so going on 6 years now. We started back in 2016, and 2016 was a lot of informal individuals giving their time, giving their energy outside the 9-to-5 job towards a mission, really about getting people connected to the tech space. And since then, we've evolved over the years, added more services, adjusted to the way that we needed to based on the market, and give people what they need to get the outcomes they're looking for about more people in the tech space.
Yeah. So just like Michael, we create these movements, organizations, we see that there's a gap, specifically a diversity gap in a lot of different sectors. And so I know definitely in the tech space, there's diversity gaps. And for us in the nonprofit sector, for the new philanthropists, what we've seen is a diversity gap when it comes to board representation. And so the new philanthropist focuses on bringing more and more leaders like yourself onto nonprofit boards, because nonprofits are helping communities of color, marginalized communities all across. And so we don't have decision makers at the table that look like us, that sound like us, that are like us. The decisions are being made for communities in a way that may affect them too. And so because I've met Michael through the circles that we run in together, because we go through a lot of our community.
And yeah, so I think it was a great idea to kind of come together and see how does tech really fit into that board representation, right? How does specifically BIPOC leaders within the tech movement, how do you guys think about leadership in nonprofits or is there leadership in general? So to kind of start us off, Michael, I wanted to ask you if you could share with us a moment that when you first felt like a leader. So it could have been on a nonprofit, at your work, but when did you feel first like a leader? And what did that moment teach you or reflect for you?
Sure. As I thought about this question, I was thinking about creating a company. I was thinking about serving on different boards, but I actually went back to my younger days. I was in high school. So when I was in high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. That's my goal was. I actually went to school for political science, so I was kind of on that track. But summer got derailed. But if I wanted to be a lawyer, I joined a law club. I was in high school. And part of the law club, we actually did something called team court. And a part of team court, we would actually represent individuals that either got in some type of trouble, things that we can't handle, right? So nothing that I was too crazy. But we actually went ahead and vowed on their behalf to get them a reduced sentence with that school. So if people were to get kicked out, get expelled, have what we call CSI back in the day, we represented them. And I loved that because it allowed to represent my peers and someone who made a mistake, right, shouldn't end up going to jail or being expelled for things that may be minor. So being inside that space, helping people was one of the things that I, to this day, look back to. And I remember those days of just helping people along the way, right? And that idea of helping people really stuck throughout all the other things I've done over the years.
I mean, that's really the best part about leadership is that you really get to connect with others and kind of find a way to really, not, leadership isn't only for you, it's for others to kind of be part.
And I love that example that I shared because a lot of times we think that we have to be in a position, in a specific position in order to lead or to take that first step. And everybody can be a leader in some shape or form.
How do you specifically say that? Someone on our private board, I mean, me in my career, I started out in advertising. So I always felt like board leadership was something that only wealthy people could do because it writes checks that I know I couldn't. But we really, that's a big part of our goal and mission is to kind of demystify that we all belong at the table. We all need to be there, especially for communities. So it's not about having tons of money to be on the board. We're getting rid of those norms within the nonprofit sector. So I know both of our work is grounded in equity and access. So I want to ask you, how has your personal journey influenced the way you approach board leadership and shapes any organizational culture that you've been a part of?
Sure. So the thing that I think about is being a servant leader, right? Is the work that we do, the one we're a nonprofit, right? So we're not a for-profit, we're a nonprofit, which means we're not all about profit, we're about helping to gain that, right? So our whole mindset is shifted about what can we do to help you get wherever you need to get to. And for us, that's in the tech space. Right, so we start here, great. Let's help you get over here so that you can be more engaged. I know the more that I lean in, the more that my team leans in, the more that we get connected to the community and the barriers that's happening all across the tech space. Oh my goodness, we can start doing some broken things where we can start to be innovative, start to be more proactive and less reactive about like what's happening in any given space. Right, we can begin to build right a true tech hub, right, a true innovation lab that allows everyone, no matter what you look like, no matter what your background is, get dropped in that bucket and come out whatever that looks like, right? Because we all have different pathways inside the tech space. You know, the tech industry is very broad, right? So when I say tech, I don't mean IT, right? IT is information technology, which is a sub of tech space, right? Because there's so much that you can do with tech. And my whole goal, ever since growing up, go from team court to helping my mom in the kitchen, helping my grandma out in the community, is about, hey, how can I provide some level of impact, some level of change in this area, right? And then grow to more people, right? I help you, help this person. And then now everybody started giving some type of goodness. I definitely didn't think about this at that age. Right? At that age, I was helping people. But as you get older, as you start to connect things, you realize, oh, all these things are connected. They have an impact.
And I think specifically access in the tech world or access in the nonprofit world is so important, right? Because we don't have access most of the time. It's not given to us. And so how do we really provide as leaders access to more leaders to come through and be able to really participate and represent?
For sure. And I'll just add that it's very difficult to talk about any form of leadership if you have things going on personally, right? So I definitely don't want to make some, oh, you have time and it's just X, Y, Z. But that's definitely not the case, right? You have to adjust your own personal situations, whatever that looks like, mentally, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right? And from there, now you can build, right? Now you can start to do things on certain boards, have more opportunity to really be impactful, right? Versus feel like your time is being wasted in that capacity.
So we're really living in unprecedented times right now. It's been a little difficult to hear from others. Specifically, the nonprofit sector, we have seen federal funds, freezes, people are not giving like they used to. Some of the most hardworking, grounded nonprofits, grassroots nonprofits are trying to figure out how to keep their doors open, right? And so my question to you is, why do you believe representation on nonprofit boards is even so much more critical right now?
Yeah, right now it's very critical because we're at a new place where there's so many opportunities. And I'm gonna keep it from a tech lens. There's a whole bunch of other opportunities outside of tech, right? But my focus is tech. So if we're thinking about AI, or we're thinking about infrastructure, as we're thinking about things that are being created right now, if you're not a part of those opportunities, you're just widening the gap between you and the person next to you, right? So thinking about that, well, if you don't have representation on organizations that are providing services, that are going for contracts, going for opportunities, well, they're creating solutions that may not represent your outcomes, right? They're creating solutions that you may walk by every single day, thinking it does not impact your life, your mom, your dad, your brother. It's like, actually it does, right? And right now, as we think about a tech ecosystem, our vision is a tech ecosystem for all. So the things that we create, the initiatives, the products and services, truly create outcomes where I can't talk for profits, but at least for nonprofits, we want to dissolve, right? Like we have a mission. Our mission is to start and finish. If we don't collaborate and have the right partnerships, the right people who understand those perspectives, it makes it very difficult as we see right now to create the outcomes that we want that truly move generations, right? Or regions, right? Depending on the topic and your focus.
And I'll say, like, in the nonprofit space, tech is revolutionary for us, y'all. Because there's a lot of nonprofits that are still working very analog per se, right? And so coming in with tech or automations or in any way how AI can really help with the bandwidth of how nonprofits function is going to be immense for us, especially now as funding is increasing. And so having someone like you at the table at a board to kind of bring in those solutions, how to do more efficiency and automation, that's going to be super valuable. So not only is it your representation of those cultural insights that you have as a leader, but also your leadership skills within your own career levels and how you can bring in innovation into a sector that's been holding on to like little money and do a lot with it, but we're ready to innovate.
Definitely, everybody here has some type of little experience, whether it's on the tech side, tech skills, or on the creative side, content creation, anything around publications, media, you name it. You can provide so much value to a nonprofit or to any organization that has a board, really just bringing yourself to that. And if they're serving clients or serving the community, even better, because now you get to really tap into your lived experience and not just your work experience or skill sets, but also your habits, your passion that you really love to do.
So from your perspective, I mean, I know that GTM is a nonprofit with board members. From your point of view, what have you seen are some of the barriers that specifically BIPOC leaders in the tech space have in joining boards? Or what's kind of keeping people from seeking out those opportunities right now?
Sure. So by a show of hands, who's on the board right now? No, in general, any board, yeah, any board for a nonprofit or even for a for-profit, any board organization. Okay, so less than 10%. So I started because there's so many opportunities to be on boards, right? Whether you're passionate about development, passionate about law, passionate about criminal justice, passionate about creating tech solutions, there's so much value that you could bring to any industry, right? So if you think about making sure that people are connected to boards, one of the barriers that I see is just communication, right? And realistic expectations. I think sometimes people may overcommit to too many boards, right? I think other types may think serving boards is very complicated, right? And there's definitely levels of board engagement, right? If you are able, whatever your type is, your privileges, whatever that looks like, there's a nonprofit that fits that, right? Because before I had an opportunity to hire staff, we had volunteers. And everything about a volunteer engagement, whether it's a board or a volunteer, right? Any type of level of a volunteer work, it's all about connecting their passion to what they want to do, right? And both of us mutually understand that like we can stop at any given time, right? Because there's nothing that is making us work together other than our choices. So if we address, what the realistic expectation is, hey, let's all start with one board and really lean in so that we're not over committing ourselves and we don't have the impact that we want. And then now we don't feel valued, and then now we get down a whole slippery slope, right? So if we can simplify, choose one, really communicate about what the expectations is, and then also like engage, right? And bring your ideas, right? Whatever that idea is, bring it to the table and work with the relationship to get the outcome that you want. And I'll say start with a commitment, right? If you're going to start doing a nonprofit, you should be thinking, in my opinion, I'm curious your thoughts. You should be thinking anywhere from a year to 3 years at minimum, right? At minimum. And if you have an engagement based on their bylaws, they rotate every year, you can start like on a committee, right? Some nonprofits have different engagements where before you even go on the board, they kind of update you a little bit, right? You could be on an advisory board, you could be on any kind of committee or type of project to get started so that you can get to know a little more organization and build from there. But for me, it's all about communication.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say that for us specifically, what's important is the why. So, being a board member is all volunteer, specifically for nonprofit sector. You do get paid on the corporate boards, but those are just harder to get on, right? So it's a volunteer opportunity where you're going to be bringing in your time, you're bringing in, some fundraising that you may have to do, and you're also going to be bringing in your expertise. And so that's for those reasons, knowing whatever you are passionate about, what sector you want to really go and look at. Is it about, the in-house? Is it about youth? Is it about, food services? What is it that really drives you that's going to want to give you that commitment to go and be a part of the board is number one. And then also, we all have imposter syndrome in these leadership roles, right? We have imposter syndrome when we get asked to be a part of a meeting or something. And so really knowing, getting the coaching and the sense of knowledge we need to serve on a board is important for us. That's why we have programs for that specifically to help leaders like yourself learn about board service, but also feel comfortable in what you can bring to the table. Because the lived experience, the cultural insights, all those things are super important. And I'll give a quick example. There was a food service organization out there that was providing, food services for communities, but they weren't really understanding why they weren't connecting with Southeast Asians in general. They didn't know why. So they did a data study to find out what are we missing here? And so it just came down to that they were not offering vegetarian meals. And if somebody on the board was, coming from that community would have said, hey, you know what, we're not offering what this community needs. No, they didn't have to do a data survey for that. But they had somebody there that could actually talk about what are the needs of communities that they're not even targeting. And so by now knowing that information, they're able to open up their services even wider to more community members. And so, yeah, some of the barriers that we see that come up mostly is this idea that you have to pay to play or have to pay money or fundraise a lot. Fundraising is scary, I get it. But I do think that we're changing that within our work on really understanding how we can come together and not only make sure that your meaningful gift is lower, it doesn't have to be a $5,000 type of giving yet, but it's like, how can you fundraise? I mean, we have huge social networks within our own communities, and asking like 10 people for $20 each, done, right? You don't have to worry about creating, raising more money. So yeah, I think it's important to step into that leadership in a way where with open arms and understanding that giving back is super important for community work.
What I do love about one of your programs is the matching process, right? Because, man, when it comes out to board positions, as any CEO, president, ED, that's a very touchy conversation, right? Because you're inviting people to your baby, inviting people to your vision. So you want to make sure it's a great fit, right, for you and for the volunteer, because no one wants to go through a process and not be happy. So I definitely recommend and support and making sure the connections align so that the impacts can be monumental.
Well, to talk a little bit about a board matching process, you kind of set it up really well. You said the dating process, and that is kind of what it is, right? We have a program called the board matching program. So if you have one of these cards there, this is where you can come and find out more. We're going to ask you questions through your application about where do you want to serve, what insights you want to bring to the table, and then based on that, we'll have an actual conversation with you around, hey, there's some nonprofits that you may be interested in, and then we'll actually introduce you to the ED or the executive director, and then we'll introduce you to some board members, and then you'll even actually get to attend a board meeting and understand what that culture is like before you say, yes, I want to join. And so it is like a match-up. You have to date a little bit of her before you really come in and commit. And we do that for one reason, because we believe that you have to build authentic relationships. This is not about a job board. You're not applying for a job, but you're actually applying to serve the community in deep ways. And so it has to be meaningful for both, right? For yourself and also for the nonprofit, and make sure that's a good match.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just a shout out to my nonprofit boards that I sit on, and shout out to my board members. So yeah, watch the chat. Yeah, I love y'all. I love y'all. So recently, most recent appointment was I'm on the board of KZI Advisory Board. So I'm here, no KZI, the Black radio station here in Austin. Okay, I love it. Shout out to KZI 88.7. If you have a car, turn it on, listen, love you, thank you. One of my here is my heart is the Greater Austin STEM ecosystem. Universal Tech was also the sponsor of the Greater Austin STEM ecosystem. So I love the work that they do. They're all about getting individuals like STEM. That's what they do. That's right aligned with the work that we do at Universal Tech. And then lastly, I'm on the board for the Texas Science Engineering Fair at Texas A&M. So if you do have youth in middle school or high school, please let them know about the Texas Science Engineering Fair. It is a great opportunity, and not many individuals know about it because of the process of the research that I needed. So please spread the word and link it up. It is really a great opportunity.
There you go. There you go. So if you want like nonprofit board service advice, that comes to this guy.
Sure.
Or just so tell me, so what are some lessons from your board service that you've had that you've been able to carry over to your work in tech? Or vice versa, right? What are some of those leadership kind of skill sets that you've been able, and just general knowledge?
That's a great question. I think I'm doing a lot of things with this right now, so pondering. But what comes to mind is, urgency. So I'm from Miami, so I'm already a city boy, so we moved very, very fast. But then I started at Oracle, which is tech, and tech is extremely fast. Fail quickly, fix it, go on, keep it going, right? Don't disconnect any point of process, and make sure you get to the finish line. And then I come to the nonprofit space, and sometimes things can be a little bit slower, especially when you're dealing with people who have a variety of lived experiences. When you are in tech, usually it is like a matchmaking process, so not everybody you're going to work with because of the product and service you have. When doing nonprofit work, pretty much everybody is aligned with your mission in some way, shape, or form. It's all about how does that relationship work, right? How do you engage with that? So as I think about that, it's all about bringing that sense of speed and urgency and quality and efficiency that like a tech space would have into the nonprofit realm. So now when I'm on boards, I'm thinking about how can we innovate here, right? What are the outcomes that we're looking for, whether it's, getting people jobs or helping people get certs or getting people food or getting people to listen to the radio, whatever the outcome is, great. All right, what can we do to make that happen? Right? What kind of event can we do? What kind of partnerships can we have? So I like the sense of speed and just doing the best that we can along the way and being okay with things not being perfect, even though you're striving for that. But being okay with that. And then now we have a lot of partnerships with nonprofits. So we think about programs differently because of that tech mindset and kind of STEM framework to see outcomes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but vice versa, have you taken any of your nonprofit board experience into tech? Have you slowed things down in tech?
Yeah, well, I'll say that you definitely be patient with people. I think that's where like the social side of things come into play, where not everyone. Because if you go too much into tech, it can seem transactional. So you do want to be cautious of that, especially as individuals who are not used to that, right? So we do digital literacy training. Some people, English is not their first language. So we're engaging with that in a way that we may be the first thing they know to the tech space. And yeah, we're tech, we're also people, right? And we're an organization, we provide services, and we just don't want to help you and say bye, right? We want you to be engaged. Right, that's why we're here today. We're all about, hey, Once you have everything checked off and you're in a good mental space and mental space to volunteer, then please get plugged in because that's what we need, right? We need more people to do that, and the more we get connected, hey, we can make it happen. Love it, love it.
And I'll stop that.
Love to see it. That's what we do.
So what advice would you here today who join the board, maybe feel like they should, maybe they shouldn't, the time commitment, et cetera, et cetera. What advice would you give to the leaders in this room today in terms of how they can best prepare to make that decision and the benefits from it?
You know, they say people like to be wanted. So I'm gonna let you know that a nonprofit wants you. They need you. They need you today, yesterday, and definitely tomorrow. So my first recommendation, reach out to Philantropists, go to their website. They do the work for you. And I'm all about working smarter, not harder. So that's, that question about the myth. Oh, you do not have to work very hard. Not all the time. Not all the time at all. So leverage resources, right? Tap into that. Will be one. Secondly, like on a personal side, is find out what you're passionate about. Right, like Austin has one of the largest number of nonprofits per capita, like across the U.S. So there are people drop a pin in front of a nonprofit. So find what you like to do, whatever that interest is. Find the right organization, and find out the process. And if you have anything in your community, that's also a great place to start, right? Because things that are local, we can have a lot of impact locally as well. So the new philanthropists, find what you're passionate about, and look around you. There may be some right next door that you can jump into.
So if you're like, I'm not on that board or whatever, confidence board, we'll take you through it. We're here for you. Last thing here, what's giving you hope right now about the future of leadership, especially in Austin's tech and nonprofit community? Because we need some hope right now.
Yeah, so I got two answers to this one. I thought of those. So one is I'm a father. I have a 3-year-old little girl and a 1-year-old little girl, and they are techies. They can get into the phone. They can take photos, they get content. When I say that these people are in it, they are in it all day, every day. So I'm hopeful for my daughters, but also for the future. Right now, there are great people, which is my second point. There are great people in organizations that are doing great work right now. And they understand the overall challenges that we're facing. So it's not just me, it's not just my team. We have over 50 partners that's playing some type of role inside this space. And I'm very, very confident in the people that we've connected with, the opportunities that are being created. Despite what's going on, there's always a flip side to that. I just recommend you all to get plugged in, because you could be part of the wave, and you could definitely be part of the movement.
So I'll give my 2 cents here. UTM gives me hope. And I will say that the people in this room give me hope because, we got a long runway in front of us in terms of nonprofits and how we got to navigate the space right now. But if people don't come together to support communities, then we're going to have a hard time. But you guys give me hope because I know that where you belong. I know you have a voice to share, and I'm excited to be a part of that journey with y'all. And you know this is here for you. So yeah, for sure.
For sure. Thank you so much for being here.
I think we have a few there.
I hope that question. Let me see. Any questions? I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself? Hi, Samir.
Collaboration has been always an issue within the nonprofit sector, and it's why it keeps us doing monumental work, honestly. So I'll give you a couple of solutions. One, showing up to events of others and kind of like inserting yourself and kind of getting to know people. But LinkedIn, man, I mean, sometimes what we do is we just go out there and find out who's connected to who. We make the grid, right? And then find out how to just go and have authentic conversations with people and be transparent, like, here we help. And I think you could offer this help. If you can't, let me know who you think you would suggest to offer that help.
I got some answers for you too as well. So one is shout out to United Way. They're one of our partners, and they have several different action items. And a lot of those action items are connected to initiatives, whether it's around mothers, families, education, youth, economics. That's a good starting point because they have a lot of partnerships. So even I'm part of the 2Gen steering committee. It's like 15 organizations, all very different. We all collaborate. That's a great starting point because they're all about collaboration. Another one would be Mission Capital. It's been a while since I connected with Mission Capital. I do know their CEO, but their program may have changed a little bit. But they did the same things, kind of very similar, about connecting individuals and organizations and having larger initiatives and larger programming to engage the impact. So those would be the two that I got option for it. Oh, Connect ATX. So Connect ATX is tied to Find Help, and that's an online platform. And any individual looking for resources, you can go to Find Help. You can filter it by low cost, free, some cost. You can even pick a specific area of focus, like healthcare, criminal justice, lawyer, and they'll show you organizations and even some city. I believe there's city. Yeah, there should be some city links on there as well. And it'll show you how to get connected to organizations, contact information, services, Connect ATX, leverage that.
So y'all mentioned that the ones that pay. So how can you find out like which ones are paying? And are they paying because you have like so much more work to do? And also, do some of them does the pay look good or like what's it look like?
I was encouraged in your response to that.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not an expert at this either, but yeah, I mean, corporate boards usually have, the big decision makers, you see them in the headlines. They do pay well, but it's a very selective group of candidates. I mean, diversity rises more in that space. It's all about who you know. But that doesn't mean you don't belong at that table. Actually, you're needed at that table. So most companies have some type of, especially if they're public shareholders, right? They have a board of directors that will help guide that company. They're usually led by executives or executive friends of executives, et cetera, et cetera. They're decision makers and how to navigate that board, make mergers happen, all et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of businesses that may have them too. So I think the more experience you get with a nonprofit board service, commissions, different areas within other leadership circles, the more you kind of, I consider nonprofit board service a gateway into corporate board service.
That's a conversation. That's some opportunities.
Best practice for nonprofit organizations. From the top down, there is no AI integration, tech integration. What we say is best practice. Get them started. Everyone in house.
That's one, reach out to University Movement. That's one thing that we do. We actually connect the organizations. We have a very robust internship / project-based learning area where we engage on different things like that with organizations. So that'll be one. Second is, I believe the city of Boston, once again, things changed, but the city of Boston Small Business Services, I think they just had their summit, or maybe their summit's tomorrow. There's a business summit tomorrow where they cover things like that, especially now since it's been some time. There's a playbook there, right, that allows people to engage. Lastly is if you go online to YouTube, you could go into ChatGPT and you can ask it to create a strategy. So the strategy would be the starting point that I would say, because you can go into many different directions when it comes down to AI optimizations. So you want to have some framework in mind so you can either give it to an ED, a CEO, or a different department leads to go ahead and implement there.
Yeah, ChatGPT is good for us right now. I mean, you do it with caution because, you need it to be your authentic voice and stuff, but no, I mean, I think that's one way that's gonna open up a lot of bandwidth for nonprofits. But I think this is a missing space for us. Like, what can we do for nonprofits through AI in a way that will help us move forward? Even easier with little resources and like smaller teams, right? The smaller nonprofits are the ones that need the most.
So another question by show of hands, how many people here are familiar with like organizations or companies that give like free licenses, discounts to nonprofits? Everybody know that one? Okay. Some nonprofits don't know that. Right. So just sharing that information kind of allow organizations to go, oh, well, let me reach out to Microsoft, reach out to Google, let me leverage these free resources to at least get me to a certain level, right? And when we talk about like tech advancements, there's so much we do, but there's something that really can go from 0 to 50 by changing one thing, right? So there is some things that you all can bring that you may kind of think that, oh, everybody knows that, but sometimes people don't because they're so focused on the work that they do, but they're not really thinking about strategy and engagement and how we really build to a whole new level. They just haven't thought about other resources. So I highly recommend getting connected and getting plugged in and allow your skill set, right, to do those things so that people can, build and grow from there.
TechSoup, right?
Oh yeah.
TechSoup.org. Go there, register, and you get tons of digital software products for free or at a very low cost for nonprofits. That does exist for us.
Yeah, and you can also just reach out to a company. So putting my sales hat on, you can reach out to a company. I know they'll do this all the time. They have like volunteer hours that their employees can provide to different organizations. So you can either pitch a project or they have some type of program that you can just tap into where they can give employees, they can assign them to your company and y'all could do whatever type of project you want and get the technical resource from that company. So a lot of companies do that. So once again, right, some nonprofits that don't have the capacity to do that because that takes relation building, right? Someone has to manage our project or engage with other volunteers. So that's where you all can come and provide that support.
In terms of the skill sets, you've been talking about a lot of different things. I heard you touch on AI. I just heard you talk about strategy. Is there one like big skill gap that you see where you're like, if you can do that, please like go apply everywhere because every nonprofit needs this and they need it right now?
Well, the big thing would be like AI organizations, right? So any organization right now has several different jobs. So I believe, here's your thoughts, that they're looking at two things. How can I take the existing employees or team members that I have and embed them with AI in their work processes, right? So what does that look like? If you write a newsletter, how can you leverage AI to write a newsletter and write multiple newsletters for different audiences now? If you post around content, great. How can we create a strategy to post a content, have that go automated that aligns with our event process, right? So really building a framework internally within those departments and with those employees. So the current output of work just exponentially jumps. So that's like level one. Then the flip side of that is like, great, how can we grow? Right? Like what are the new things that we haven't even thought about yet that now that we have a baseline of skills that we leverage AI to do a quick research or give us a framework, now we can talk about AI agents where they're doing things for us and it's completely creating a whole entire framework from start to finish. And now that's less hours manually that our program director is doing, that our program director can go into relationships and partnerships that you kind of have to do in person, right? You can leverage AI to do some of that, but it's a different framework of like what's coming on the horizon. So AI will be one. The second thing is cyber. Cyber is never going to go away because of how much we're building technology. You also have to protect that. And now cyber is really being split to hardware and software because we're about to get into way more robotics because of AI and how technology is advancing, right? So AI and cyber would be the top two that I would share, just given where we are right now in the space.
So I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly because I'm not the tech. I love that one. Data automation. So nonprofits rely on storytelling a lot in terms of their impact, their numbers. That's how they fundraise. That's how they get more money. But having data tell that story for you based on so much data that you get from communities and from the services you provide, I mean that's a skill set. That's a skill set that takes so much work. So how do we automate that in a way where we create dashboards or we create reports that can easily tell stories for members? Has been always an ask that I see. And then outside of that is just really automating or like grassroots organizations getting an infrastructure on the IT management, on getting organized through automation, all that stuff that's set up, that is so essential for us, I would say.
Oh, wow, great question. And it's funny because one of my team members was like, "Hey, I want to know like the real story behind how we got there, right, and what that looks like." But I think about the endpoints for your team, right? Is number one, we are in everything that's tech related. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I mean, you look at the numbers, at the very least, the same representation in the US is in the same representation for tech. Very simple. That should be the first goal. And then from there, we can build. But we have a 10% of any ethnicity inside the state. There should at least be 10% inside the tech space. And then from there, we look at economic outcomes, right? Are people moving up inside the tech space? That's like the second thing. Yeah, we want everybody inside the tech industry. We also want people being able to afford where they want to live, right? And right now here in Austin, not many people can afford to live here. They live on the outskirts. And one way to address that is the tech space, where the average salary is 145,000. Right? So as we are able to get inside the tech space, move up across industry, great. Now, hey, we're all serving on boards because we have the time, energy, and privilege. Right now, we can go to City Hall and actually talk about the City of Austin budget, where they've reduced a lot of services that are for the community. Right now, we can go to Capitol Hill and talk about the redistricting of lines because we understand what that looks like and we can be engaged in that process. Right? There's so much distractions that happens that you have to take care of because you have to generate income or revenue in some capacity. We want to address that so that we can be fully engaged, start to create solutions that we know our community needs, but you're not deep enough to solve it yet because of several reasons. So let's remove all those barriers so you can actually go through the thing that revolutionizes the world, right? And the more people we get connected to tech and remove those barriers, then we could truly be a tech hub.
Okay.
Yes, I have a question. So, in the context of nonprofits, a lot of the information that involved sensitive information in some cases. I am curious as to how do you address the problem of using third-party AI systems that are known for mining people's information, capitalizing. How do you use those tools safely? Because if you put your information, client information, numbers, locations, etc., official plans in a tool like ChatGPT, you're just throwing that stuff into the universe, and they for sure will use that for training of their future models, and they will use it in other potentially nefarious ways. You have no control of where you put the information there. So, how do you address that problem in the context of nonprofits? Does the question make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and it goes back to the strategy, right? So shout out to my senior director of tech innovation. On the list, our team know how you leverage different tools for what, right? So for ChatGPT, you can't put sensitive information in there, but it can help you get a framework down based on the task at hand. So we want to do summarize of different things, right? We're going to create a draft of something. When you create an SOP, you can leverage it to get you to that starting point, and then from there you can take it to the finish line. If you're talking about hard data, you remove those key identifiers, right? So no names, right? You can use, date of birth. The date of birth is not tied to anybody, right? So depending on what outcome you're looking for, you would leverage the tool to do it that way so that you can use that framework. And then if you have your own personal environment internally that's not ChatGPT, or you have your own internal AI tool, then you could be a little bit more, a little different in those environments where you have more control over them.
Questions because there are a lot of AI agents. They're just a wrapper using the OpenAI API, and you think that you're having a private system, but in reality, you're just having an interface that is literally connected to ChatGPT, and all of the data going to the pipeline directly into the server. So that's why I asked the question, because I feel like there's a lot of excitement in companies are using those tools, but the consequences of those tools is not something that's being talked about.
That's what nonprofits need you. You're completely right. Yeah, because right now, a lot of organizations, companies, everybody, individuals, you name it, is diving into technology in any way, shape, or form. Right? So if that's happening, well, we need some type of assistance for those who are not diving into this space. Right? Even I know, if I have a question about different AI tools, there's a guy that I can go to, a couple of guys. Oh, these are the ones who are diving deep because I'm not going that deep to every single day. Right? So if you have to surround yourself with the right experts and team members, and not everybody in the nonprofit space have those resources, right? So shout out to the new Philanthropists, where if I'm a board member or if I'm a company saying, hey, I need assistance with this framework, right? I need someone to provide this value, this expertise, but can you help me find somebody that could be in our board to help us do that, right? And you could be somebody that someone's looking for right now, but they have no idea where you are.
I mean, I think it's about setting up parameters. Like we're very, very careful about sharing any information. We don't do anything with ChatGPT when it comes to data. If we don't know it, if we don't know what will happen to our data, we will not at all agree to it. It's been our policy. I don't know how other nonprofits work, but I do think that type of leadership skill set is needed for sure.
Can't wait to see where you end up, sir. Very excited.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, we have always partnered with corporations, and some of them have been tech hubs. We work with ERG groups, IRG groups, and do an intro, I would say introduction, kind of take the lead presentation to those employees to see how they can become involved, especially in Austin, because we have the board matching program. We're able to really send ourselves into joining that, or we even have a board mentors of color program. We have one of our mentors here right now. So yeah, so we have those opportunities to get involved and get aware. It's just a matter of getting into those tech hubs, talking to the philanthropy or HR are there to bring us in to do workshops.
And I can add to that. So many moons ago, it's like 2016, 2017, we used to have quarterly meetings with ERG groups. At the time, other Oracle, I was leading their internal employment for their company. And we were connected a whole bunch of ERGs from Apple, Facebook, Google, VMware, Indeed, you name it. And we met a lot. However, turnover was a real challenge. And having consistent programming post COVID was also a challenge. So I think we recently had a conversation, I want to say with Visa. I think it was the Visa or Salesforce. I don't remember which company. But they were talking like, hey, we need to bring these back to have the ERGs be reconnected so that the ERGs can be plugged into the community, right? And vice versa. The community can be plugged in with ERGs because there's so many things that happen in the nonprofit space that ERGs plug right into. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. I see I'm going to make that happen again. See that? So ERGs are employee research groups, or it's sometimes called affinity groups or business research groups. And they're usually within organizations or companies, all different sizes, that really provide a value for the internal employees. Whether it's tied directly to women, to veterans, to a specific ethnicity, and it can be even generational, right? It has different frameworks that allow them to get connected over different topics. Any other questions? Wow, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for sharing.
Yeah, y'all come in. So
you guys are flipping. You guys are staying right there.
Everybody stand up. There you go. Yeah. Everybody come on in. So we got a quick photo. All right, there we go. Representation matters.
One more right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so before everyone takes off, just want to say special thanks to our sponsor, the Philanthropists. Special thanks to our community partners, Young Black Austin, We're Not Lacto, Java, also, if any of you want to be a part of the future Tech Bytes event, you or your company or your business or whatever,